Hey everyone, this is Celia with ROLI, and today I'm going to walk through my process of customizing my first sound using the Seaboard RISE 2. I had a Seaboard RISE for a while, but I recently just got the Seaboard RISE 2, which means I'm pretty new in Equator 2. So I thought it would be kind of fun to go through my process in Equator 2 as I design my first sound for a project that I'm working on. So what I really want to do is I have a piano bass track that I've recorded. It sounds like this. And I want to overlay a Seaboard solo on top of that piano track. But I don't really know what I want that Seaboard solo sound to be yet, so we're going to customize it. I have some ideas of what I want that solo part to sound like. I know I want it to sound clean. I know I want it to sound kind of like a lead, like guitar, piano, really stand out above the piano track. And I also know that I want it to have some particle effects in it as well. The Seaboard is one of the most expressive instruments out there right now. For every sound, it has 5 dimensions of touch that can customize that sound. So my first step here is I'm going to pick a sound that's kind of going to work as my bass that I'm going to work up from and customize from there. So I'm going to start with something I like. So let's play around a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my sound pack in Equator, and I have a bunch of sounds downloaded, so I'm just going to go through and see what's there. This sound that we started with, it's a little bit too rock band for me. I don't quite like where it's going there, so it's similar, but not quite. That's cool. So maybe I'll try some lead because that's originally what I'm looking for, so that might be a good place to start. Let's try this. It's cool, it's kind of like a more muted lead. It's cool, but I think I'm looking for something with a little bit more oomph, something not so muted. And you can actually search for things too to see what comes up. I'm going to search for clavichords because I really like that sound. I really like the kind of things it brings out. Let's try this one. That's cool. This one's actually called Twangy Clavitar, so maybe it's more of a guitar and piano mix. I like it. I'm going to kind of investigate the 5D elements a little bit and see what it's all about. So got that up and down slide. It does respond to that pressure. Left and right glide, maybe kind of that guitar sound. Has a little bit of echo on it when you release. It's cool, I like it. So I'm gonna go with that. It's called Solo Twangy Clavitar. So I'm gonna open up my interface here where we'll begin. This top panel is where you're gonna focus on the sound generation itself. You're gonna root effects, use effects, turn things on, see where the sources come from. And then this bottom panel is where you'll modify the sound and modulate it with macros. So I'm gonna focus on this routing panel up above first. So I'm gonna look at the sources and see what it's made of. I see that it's mostly made up of guitar. You've got this nylon guitar, kind of where that mutedness probably comes from. And then you've got this jazz guitar, where the two of that one's kind of that lead, that more punchy sound. So the two of them make a really nice sound together. And what else do we have here? We also have some noise. We'll turn that on. I usually don't leave that on. You can hear why. Just adds a little bit of something I'm not really looking for this. So I'm actually going to go ahead and change this noise to something else that I maybe do want. So I'm going to turn it into a sampler, and when I originally said that I wanted some particle effects, I want to play around with that a little bit more. So I'm going to go in here and let's see what kind of stuff we can add. There's a ton of options. I think I'm going to start with something like a dulcimer because that can add some of that fairy dust sound to a note a little bit. So there's a lot of different dulcimer things here. Let's see what this sounds like. As the dulcimer runs, we've got the dulcimer scrapes. These are kind of eerie a little bit. The dulcimer trill. I think all 3 of those are a little bit more distracting than I want for a solo instrument, but maybe the hit. Yeah, it adds some brightness there a little bit. I'll turn it up so I can really hear it. Yeah, I like that. And you can hear it in there. You can hear kind of that bell sound on each note. So now I'm going to look at the filters on each sound and I'm going to see what we can do there. But before we start, I'm going to make sure that my routing configuration is turned to parallel, because if we do it in serial, the effects are going to go from 1 into 2, and on parallel, they're both going to run consecutively. And what that means is over here, I like to do it this way. I like to turn on all of my bass sounds into the same filter. So I'll put the guitars into filter 1, and then I'll put this other effect all into filter 2. That just helps me think about things a little more organized while I'm working. So I go into the effects panel and I can see that these top ones go into filter 1 and these bottom ones go into filter 2. And I can see that there's going to be a delay and a chorus on that filter 1, which is my guitars. So I'm going to turn that delay off. You can hear it, and let's hear what it sounds like when it's off. There's not much delay, none at all. And I like that. For a lead instrument, I don't really want any delay on it. It's gonna make it muddy, gonna kind of make it a little too messy. So I'm gonna leave that off. I'm gonna turn chorus off as well. And then we'll go into the reverb, and maybe I want some delay on the dulcimer only, and kind of make that bell mystic quality kind of show through a little bit. So it's interesting. It's a little too much still. So I'm gonna turn that off. Just looking a little further, let's turn everything on in this top panel and see what it sounds like. It's a little too much, a little too rock band a little bit. So I'm gonna turn those off. Let's play around with some other things. Let's add some grain delay. It's a little bit of that delay, but with some grain noise added onto it. I don't really think I want that either. So I'll come back here and play around with the sound engines a little bit. Those are here on the left. Those are going to be things like oscillators, wavetables, things you can add in that are going to give that presence of like that ever-changing sound. So here's what those sound like. We'll go in here a little bit, we'll play around, and let's look at something analog. Let's add interesting. And we'll turn it all the way up. I really like to turn things all the way up when I first hear them to hear the extremes. It's cool. I see there's a clavitar one. I'm curious to see what that sounds like added on. Still, I think for a solo instrument, I'm not going to add an oscillator because that's just going to make it too messy. Something like a pad might add a lot of depth to something, but it's not necessarily what I would use for a solo instrument. Let's play around with the noise. Let's see if there's anything we do like with noise here. That was the original one we had. I know I don't really like that one as much. Let's try the white noise. We can turn it down to a much lower level. Not quite. Let's try some crackle. Maybe we can get it to sound like an analog record player. Definitely some of that analog crackle pop there. But I'm gonna leave that how it is. I'm not gonna keep the noise. So I'll come back to here, turn that off. I think I'm set. I think I'm ready to record that Seaboard solo. So let's do it. That was awesome. I love it. I think designing a sound, specifically having come into the project with an idea of what I wanted, but not quite, and getting to experiment, that was cool. And as I see and learn a little bit more about the program itself, there's so many possibilities. Everything is customizable, and so just pick a sound, pick a project, and go wild.